Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. We will start with our lecture today, chapter 2 regarding organizational renewal, the challenge of change. So I will share the slide of this week. So this is the lessons for this week, chapter 2, organizational renewal. So I mentioned last week regarding the 5 stages of OD development or OD process. So this is the 5 stages of OD process. Remember I mentioned about the OD process or OD activity starts when the employees or individual members or organizational members felt or realize about the issue that exists in the organizations. This issue may be so impactful or so important that shouldn't be denied, shouldn't be ignored. So they need to solve this problem. So when organizational members, that's mean the employees or manager, realize about the issues, about the problem that exists in the organization that may have a negative impact or negative consequences to the performance of the organizations or to the well-being of the organization, well-being of the departments. So they need to do something. So they need to do something, so they anticipate the need for change. So is this the starting of OD process? So in stage 1, anticipate the need for change. That means when the managers or the organizational members or individual members realize about the problem that exists in the organizations or in the department. So they anticipate something need to be done to overcome the problem. So they anticipate need for change. So this week is about the details about this stage 1. So first, a pressure for change in the organizations, especially in the business world, business environments. You can see nowadays it's a very rapidly changing market conditions. In the morning, there will be something else. In the afternoon, something else. Even though if you look at the stock exchange, the market is up and down all the time. So you cannot predict what will happen. In the morning will be the same in the afternoon. So the market is always changing. And also the products and the services is keep changing. For example, if you see the Samsung Note 8 and Note 9 is quickly obsolete. All these products and especially products can easily become or can rapidly become obsolete. And also the competition in the markets are so rapid. So it is important for the organization to realize about this. Some organizations, because they cannot cope with this change, all this change, so they need to downsize, because when they cannot cope with the change, that means their market share will be declined. So it will affect their organization survival or their organization profitability. So in order to survive before it's a major loss happens, sometimes the organization downsize. It's not only downsizing, the impact for these kind of changes on the organization. Sometimes the organization need to do something in order to adapt with the changes or in order to overcome the inability to adapt with the changes. So they may downsize. Downsize does not necessarily mean because they're having a problem, so they need to downsize. Sometimes because of the strategy of the organization in improving their standability or their performance, or that's the strategy, so they downsize. Or sometimes they do re-engineering. So re-engineering is like a totally improve or totally make change to the structure, to the process, and so forth. Or they maybe go into flattening structure. So nowadays in the organization, if you maybe study if you have a management background, or if you already taken management for professional, that's mean introduction to management, you will see that in the organization there are structures, whether it is bureaucracy, whether it is work specializations, whether it is horizontal style of the structure of the organization. So normally in today organizations, many organizations are moving from the tallest structure into a flatter structure. Flatter structure means instead of having too many managers, they just having one manager for 100 employees. Long time ago, maybe they have, like, for example, 20 managers for 100 employees. So they try to flatten their organizations, so they cut off some of the bureaucracy, some of the process. So that's in order to make the operations and also the work tasks being done, fast and efficient. So they move from taller to flatter style of structure. So this actually, in order to cut many of the unnecessary process, so they go into flatter structure. So sometimes in the way to go for globalization, in the way to enter into the global market, to become more globalized organizations, they need to do some changes with the organizations. Or sometimes because of the sophisticated technology, so they need to adapt to this kind of technology, especially in their operations, so that they could be able to produce something more efficient and more effective. So sometimes these are the pressure that make organization to change. So these are amongst the pressure for change for certain organization. Even though they are stable, even though they are kind of satisfied with the status quo, with the current situations, but because of the pressure in the environments, in the business environments, or in the organization itself, it make them want to change. So I'm going to explain a little bit more. So like I mentioned, when the organization established itself in the beginning, they normally start with a simple structure. So when they become larger, when they grow, when they have so many units, so many business to look after, maybe they have many products, many services, they become taller, they become more bureaucratic, and so forth. So that's the history of the development of organizations. But nowadays, because of the bureaucracy, because inefficiency in the process, many organizations, even though they are big and large organizations, they try to flatter their structure. Flatter means there will be not much in terms of structure, in terms of in the organization, in terms of structure, in terms of processes, in terms of many rules and regulations. That's unnecessary. So that's the I want to explain actually flatter structure. This is how normally organizations start with a simple structure and then move into more bureaucratic style. But nowadays, because of the changes, competitive environment outside, many of the organizations moving into flatter structure. So many organizational change, such as downsizing, one of the example, downsizing, and also others style of changes, especially downsizing. When the organization start to downsize, normally there will be unintended effects, because the organization, when the organization downsize, that means they will cut many of the either of the employees or many of the processes, many of the layers of the organization. So especially downsizing normally have unintended effects, not only on the productivity but also on the employees' well-being. So according to the survey, 900 organizations which actually downsized, they found out that 79% of the senior managers indicate that the morals, the trust, the productivity of the employees decrease or decline after downsizing. Of course, when organization downsize, normally they will lay off some of the employees. Maybe they will say later, when the organization become grow better, maybe they will rehire these employees who've been laid off. But normally those who've been laid off, of course, sometimes they will have the organization will provide some services, maybe helps, so that these employees will be able to find another job. Maybe they will give good compensations. But it's also, even though there are some organizations they did that, but sometimes the employees who are not being laid off, they feel the pressure. they feel the pressure that they maybe not survive in these organizations, so they may be also being laid off. Or maybe those who've been laid off, they feel that they contribute to this organization for a long time and they've been chosen to be laid off. So they think it is not fair. They don't have any more trust to this organization. So it actually affects not only the one that they lay off, but also the existing employees. Maybe because they think, when people got laid off, they think that the organization do not really appreciate them, and then the existing employees, maybe they think they are not really secure in this organization. Anytime they maybe will be kicked off from this organization. So that have that kind of moral trust issues, and also this will affect the productivity. So it is important for organizations, when they want to do something, they need to do research, they need to prepare beforehand. So that's the effects of change. Sometimes can be good, can be bad, especially according to this survey regarding the downsizing. So downsizing is basically you downsize the organization from larger into smaller, normally because of the problem with the profitability of the organization, performance of the organizations, but not always. Maybe because of the strategy just to change, to become, to downsize in terms of their strategies and so forth. Okay, when we talk about changing the organizations, change in the organization, it is important for the top managers especially to make adaptive to the environment. So in order to change successfully, the top manager and the whole managers actually, and even the employees, especially the top managers, must make adaptive changes to the environments, because in the business world, in the business environments, in the environment of, around the organizations, there will be very rapid changes happen. So they have to be adaptive before the change, before they make the change. So strategy managers, because they have this strategic roles model, so they play a crucial role, especially in making sure that the organization responds to the changing industry conditions. So they should be adaptive. They should be able to forecast what's going to happen, because normally if people are working in the organization for a long time, or maybe if they have more experience, they will know what's going to happen. Then we know how the market works, how the market moves, and the feel of it, the conditions of the market. So they need to be adaptive. They need to be able to predict what's going to happen. They have to be flexible, adaptive. So they need to have this. They need to understand that the constants in the business environment is change. Nothing remains permanent except change. So there are organizations which could effectively manage the change and continuously adapt their bureaucracy or their strategy, product, and so forth in order to survive the shock. So when the change happens so sudden, without any predictive what's going to happen, the change happen unprecedented. That means out of sudden, so it will create a shock. So in order to survive this shock, the manager, if they are adaptive, if they are could predict, because working in the environments, in this kind of environment, they could predict what actually the market look like, the organization, the markets, the surrounding look like. So in order to survive the shock, if they are adaptive to the environments, if they are prepared, they will not they will be able to survive. They will not fail to in this facing this kind of shock. So they could prosper from the forces that could slaughter the competitions, because the competition normally in the business, like I mentioned, is very fierce. So managers, as a role model in the organization, especially the top managers, must prepare themselves and the organizations so that whatever changes happens, whether inside or outside the organization, they are prepared so that these changes wouldn't slaughter them when facing the competition. So they need to be a master of renewal. So master of renewal will prepare them whatever changes they could adapt, they could flexible in adapting to that environment. So adapt to the changes not only in terms of the moral, but also the bureaucracy, the strategies. Bureaucracy, that's mean maybe they need to reduce some of the bureaucracy, overcome of the stages, the strategy also, the system, the product, the culture. They need to be well prepared. Of course, maybe it is a perfect situations, but in the real life, it may be very difficult to make sure everything ready for change. So changes that facing this century, 21st century, are more dynamic and challenging than the past. And 22nd century will be even faster and more challenging, more dynamic. So that's why it said the only constant is change. So focusing the organization in this century, they need to focusing on changing organizational system in terms of the situational nature of the problems, and also the system-wide impacts. That means the effects or the consequences of this change that may be happening in the organization or outside of the organization that can have impact on the organizations. So organization system, also known system approach, is used to solve the problems. Managers need to analyze the organization, the departments, because the organization is not just one entity. It consists of interrelationship between entity, between the departments. So whatever happening outside will affect the internal environments. And it's also concerned with the other departments, interdependence and outside and inside. So organization need to be prepared, need to be adaptive to the environments. So rapid pace of technology, normally firm or organization are confronted with early technological obsolescence of products. So this is very common. I think long time ago when I was really small, if you buy electrical appliance, electrical goods, so you can use for a long time. I remember I have the national irons. I use that until now. It's never stick to your fabrics. So nowadays, if you buy the cheaper one around less than 100, normally you will find not really, not really good one. So it will easily broken or it will easily obsolete. So even the mobile phones, even though the TV or any electrical, goods nowadays, if you buy, the life span is not long. It's not, it's not very long. So many technology products nowadays, they are easily have this early lifespan, easily obsolete. That means the lifespan is not short, it's not long. So because of that, new products come in must be better than the old one, the previous one. So this indicate that the changes in the product life cycle is very huge, very fast. So you have organization need to come up with the new products. They need to make change to be better ahead of their competitors. So because of these products or technology are easily obsolete, so they need to be more advanced than competitors. So in the past, company could grow during the long lifespan. That means they are stable during a lifespan of the inventions. So they don't worry about in the 3 months or after 1 month, a new product will come in, because normally the product have a long lifespan. So with the current, with this century, many organizations have to think ahead of time. So they need to come up with the new products, with the new qualities, new specs, and so forth. So today, the innovations are often quickly overtaken by competitors. If the organization do not do faster than competitors, then they will lose the market share. That's why they need to be more faster into making change, so that they could gain more market share. They could be a leader in the innovations. So managers today face different risk situations. Especially when we're talking in the era of accelerating change, where the change is so fierce. so fast. Managerial excellence, in order to be excellence, the manager especially need to have the ability to cope with this change, and also the organization also need to have the capacity to adapt to the change. And how to adapt to the change? Of course, they need to do something so that they could produce a product that have high quality. It's not really, could be able to fix or beat the competitors. So rapid change nowadays, we live in a world defined by the rapid pace of technological change. So we have to be more ahead of times in producing something, in making changes, so that we could, bring changes to the benefit of all, and also benefit of the organizations. So the only constant is change. That means change is the permanent one. In the organizations, nothing permanent except change. So organization either become more adaptive, flexible, or anticipative, or they become rigid or stagnant. So there are two types of organization we can say. The one with the adaptive, flexible, and anticipative will survive compared to those who are stagnant and rigid in reacting to the change. If they react to the change only after the change or after something happens, then it's too late. So when it's too late, there will be maybe more loss, maybe more things need to be prepared and need to be done. Maybe a major total overhaul to the organizations. So many decisions are unique, innovative, and risky. So because of the change, organization maybe cannot predict 100%. So the decision may be risky, but they have to come up with a unique, innovative, although it is risky, because we never know what's going to happen next. It is risky, but if they didn't take the risk, so they will be even riskier. So putting new products or new process into production is a major business decisions. When you're putting the products, or when you create the products, even though you do market survey about the products, the acceptance of the customer or the public, but still is never 100% sure. So it is a risky business. But if you didn't put it, the competitors will put it, and then you will be left behind. So organization exists in the changing environment, therefore they must have the capacity to adapt. This scenario is common among those who are working in the organizations, among those who are working in the business world. They directly deal with that, so they know how change, how competitive the environments, how change are needed, so that they be able to adapt to cope with the change. So this is just to symbolize what I mentioned. One organizations which are adaptive, flexible, and anticipative. The other organization rigid and stagnant. How these two going to survive? So normally the organization which characterized with the rigid stagnance normally will not be able to survive. Maybe they will survive, but it's not as successful as those with this adaptive, flexible, and also anticipative style of organization. Okay, one of the driving forces behind a revolutionary new products, according to the Kawasaki first rule. Kawasaki is, I think, one of the pioneer. It's not really pioneer. He's working in the maybe Apple or Macintosh, but he said, if you want to make a revolution, you have to start unleashing revolutionary products and ideas. So of course, everything starts with the ideas. So if you want to make a revolutionary discovery, you need to start with something. You begin with the ideas and with the products. Who knows, your products can become something revolutionary. So that's the importance of change. You need to start unleashing some things instead of just rigid and stagnant. Okay, the way manager react to the accelerating rates of change, manager just can do more than react. They must be able to anticipate. So if normally people working in the organizations are working in the business, they already know the conditions of the market. They know they can predict So normally people who are successful, or employees or managers are successful organizations, they not only react but they also could anticipate what going to happen in the business environments. So the changing pattern, for example, in terms of changing patterns of people on the markets, on the products and technology. So they already know in advance. For example, Apple will release this product, Samsung will release this product, so they could anticipate if people are working in this business or in this in these environments. So managing effectively is a major challenge, even though we say that uh, managers need to adapt to the organization or to the changes, but it's more easier said than done. So even though managing effectively is managing change effectively is good, but it's also a major challenge that facing organizations nowadays. If they fail to change, the cost of failure will means that it will affect their survival. So change is very important. They have to adapt to the change. That means they have to do something, not just satisfied with what they have, because the environment is composed of the system. Uh, Organizations, composed of the system. They interact with the external. So whatever happen external in the markets, in the environment, gonna affect the organizations. So organization needs to adapt to these forces, to whatever happens in the environments, whether globally or domestically. So they need to also to introduce changes in the organizations, and then they will bring to the external also need to be adapted to what the environment needs, and in terms of market needs, in terms of customer trends, maybe there are different trends, customer needs, and so forth. So to be successful, organization must develop a managerial style and culture that could adequately handle the challenges and opportunity that they face. So this is very common in the organization, in the business environments. Changes is kind of really important in the organizations. The manager need to adapt to the organizations. They need to really quickly take the opportunities that's come in. So this is very common, but for those who are not really familiar with this, it is important to understand that changes are kind of common in the organizations. It's only the way they adapt, the way they manage. But of course, it's easier said than done. It's still challenging to some organization. That's why we will see the market share of certain organization flops and the other market share of the organization increase. So because that's how the world of the business environment. Next, so to survive in the competitive markets, again, organization need to adapt to the environments. Management cannot maintain excellence if they don't do some changes to the organizations. In order to do some changes, of course, they need to look around, analyze, and also they need also OD practitioners to go and check the issues, to find the issues, to gather the data, and then to come up with the intervention and so forth. So organizational renewal is defined as an ongoing process in building innovations and adaptation into the organizations. So the organization need to survive, but how they want to, the organization need to change, but how they need, how to do it. So organizational renewal normally is it is important, so it's defined as an ongoing process involving innovations and adaptation into the organization. So that's defined the organizational renewal. So for most organization, the most effective they have been in the past, more likely they resist the change. So the most successful the organization in the past, so they think that they are successful in the past, so the same strategy they will use for a long time because it's proven successful in the past. So because of that, they most of the time resist change according to the textbook. So it is maybe because they believe that the strategy that they use actually successful, so they stick to it. But because of that, they resist to change. So entropy is a physics term, is actually a principle stating that everything that is organized will break down, will run down unless it is maintained. So even though the organization may be successful in the past, but if they couldn't maintain the successful, how the organization will become decline. That means the organization will run down. So it is important to do changes if they want to maintain their success. So organization renewal is an approach to prevent corporate entropy. That means to make sure that the organization be able to maintain their success. So they need to do some changes. So there are two dimensions that are important to continued survival and growth, which is regarding to make sure that the organizations are adaptive, and also make sure that's the stability in the environments. So in organization, especially the organization that's which operates in the mature field, that means the organization that's normally operates in the environment that are characterized by stable conditions. So they have stable products. Normally they have few competitors. Even though they have many competitors, but the competitors is not as strong as the organizations. So because this kind of organizations may have different adaptive orientations. That means the stable organization may have different adaptive orientation as compared as the organization characterized by high growth market or by the turbulent environments, competitive environment. They need to have different adaptive orientations. So for stable environment, like the organization that have the stable products, few competitors, maybe they don't really face turbulent situations, so they may satisfy what they have at the moment. So compared to the organization that operates in the high growth markets with numerous competitors with high innovation, that means they operate in the dynamic and turbulent environment, they need different adaptive orientations. So normally, rarely organizations face the first one. They are, but rarely. But most of the organization they face, especially in the business and in the business world, they face this second style of environment. So in the stable environment, normally the organization characterized by unchanging basic products and services. So this is in the stable environment and stable organizations. They have static level of competition, not much competitions, low level of technological innovation. So the innovation in terms of technology is not so much, not so high. They also formalized centralized structure. That means the organization structure normally is formalized, normally centralized. That means the decision making normally done at the top. And they also have formalization between departments and between layers in the organizations. And the growth of the product of the environments also slow steady rates of growth. So for stable environments, so these organizations in the stable environment normally they be able to stay stable for a long period. If the product also stays stable for a long period, the services also, because of the stable environments. But for the high turbulence environment, which are characterized by huge competitions and also numerous markets and also high innovations, they actually characterized by rapidly changing product lines. The products keep changing in order to adapt with the changes in the environments, with the competitors, products, and so forth. Increasing and changing competitors. Maybe there will be new entrants. Maybe there will be existing companies. Compete for a same market share. New entrants and so forth. So rapid, continual technological innovations. Normally, there are some industry which have highly continually technological innovation, such as in the, micro chips kind of industry or digitalized industry. They have this kind of rapid continual technological innovations and also rapid market growth. So certain organizations, certain products, they have highly fierce competitions and rapidly change the market, the innovation, the technology, and so forth. So this considered as a dynamic and turbulent environment. So for stable environment is okay, but in today organizations, a static organization with no changes is normally difficult to find and difficult to survive. So in order to survive in today rapid changes environments, in order to survive, organization need to devise their methods for continuous self-renewal. That means they have to come up with the products, new product lines, innovations, new innovation technology, and so forth, in order to, to survive in this kind of environment. So this is the hyper turbulence environment. It's a second style of the organization that I show you in this photo. This characterized by these dynamics and turbulent environments, hyper turbulence. So in this kind of environment, static organization can no longer survive. So even though they are successful in the past, but they cannot continuously say that they will be successful if they do not do something to change their strategies, their product line, and so forth. So to survive, they need to revise their methods and then come up with the something new, something innovative, something creative. They need to also develop their ability to implement change, especially when needed, and also they must recognize when it is to change. So OD rules. So what is the OD rules then? So to meet this condition, most of the companies sometimes they create specialized OD units to implement the organizational change, to get data about the issues. Sometimes the organizations they have certain units that look after analyze the markets. Analyze the market and then how to implement the change in the organizations in order to adapt to the market. So sometimes if you want to become OD practitioner, sometimes you have specialized area that you are good at, so you focus at that area, and then organization will get your expertise in that in order to solve the problems. I mean, in order to come up with the programs in order to implement the changes that required. So these units, the specialized OD units, are normally develop new programs to help the organizations to improve the organization adaptability to other environments, and also to maintain the stable identity. And also, in other words, to make sure the change happens smoothly, not so shocked, not so overwhelming, so that the organization could manage the change effectively. So there are 4 ways organization can adapt to change. So here is 4 ways. So if you refer to this figure on the line of x-axis, you can see characterized by stability environment. This line is a stable. This line is hyperturbulence, dynamics, and then very rapid kind of changes. And here is adaptive. The x-axis is range between low and high adaptive, how the organization could adapt to the changes. So the organization can be divided into 4 styles how they adapt to the organization. As you can see here, if the environment is hyperturbulence and the adaptation is low, the organization is called reactive. If the environments around the organization is stable, that means not much changes, and the organization also low in adaptive to the change, so we call it sluggish thermostat management. If let's say the changes in the environments are so hyper-turbulent, and the organization have high adaptations to these changes, and then is called this, and this organization is called renewing transformational management. If the organizations is operates in the stable environment, that means not much changes, and they also, the organization have a high adaptive to these changes, is called satisficing management. So how each of these style of adaptations are characterized, so we're going to discuss in this slide. So sluggish thermostats management. Sluggish means lazy or inactive. So if the people are sluggish, that means they are so slow at doing something, at response to something. So organization that resist change, this kind of sluggish organizations, they resist change until cost trade-off favorites. So they resist change until they face the change, until the change knock at the door, then they do something to deal with the change. So this is the metaphor for many organizations which set their thermostat too low. They are becoming insensitive to the change. Because of the environment is stable, so it's still okay because not much change. So they are lazy, they are low at adaptive to the change. So maybe the risk is not so big, not so large. I mean the consequences maybe it's not really negative, it's not really bad. So this kind of sluggish, maybe because of that environment is not really pushing them to change. Stable environment, so this sluggish style of adaptive to change characterized by stable environments, low adaptations. So because of that, they face low risk because it's stable environments. So even though they shows low adaptations, still is not a high risk. The management style based on the low risk. So organization using this style, normally organization with this kind of sluggish thermostat management, they have very stable goals. So their organization have stable goals, more managerial levels. So their organization are considered as a taller style of structure of the organizations because they have more managerial levels. Their high ratio of superior to subordinate. So their employees with a supervisor, the ratio is more or less quite a high, more or less the same. So they also have formal control system. That means their organization are formal. They can direct their employees. The supervisor can direct their employees what to do and what not to do. However, this kind of organization may lead to serious problem in the long run because not always the environment will be stable. So if they didn't do some things, it will lead to problem in the long run because the environment is not always stable. It's always in the move, and then with the competitive environments, very difficult for organization to survive if they keep in this kind of situation. So satisficing management is also characterized by stable environment, not much change, but they show high adaptations to the changes. So they are prepared to face the change, but their environments are stable. So more the characteristics of this organization, normally they have more level of management. That means they still have a taller style of structure of the organizations. They also have formal committee. That means they are still characterized by formal style of organizations where there are formality, where there are rules and regulations in the organization that need to be abide by. So this organization is considered adequate and average, not really considered as a good performance style of organizations, adequate and average. Planning and decision making concentrate at the top. That means they are centralized decision making, centralized structure of organizations. High clarity of procedure and rules. So when they are centralized organizations, that means the decision made at the top. So there will be some rules and regulations, procedure need to be followed. That means the organization are formalized, are also characterized by bureaucratic style of organizations. So change is good enough. So normally they keep up with the change, with the industry change, but they just do at the keep enough, good enough strategies. So due to low level of pressure for change in the organizations, in the environments, so they just do the minimum requirements. So good enough in order to survive, because they good at adapting to the change, but because of the environments are stable, so they just do the minimum good enough strategy to survive in the organizations, in the environment. So this is centralized versus decentralized. So centralized, normally decision making at the tops, and they also have standardized procedure and conformity to the procedure. So this satisfying management normally characterized by centralized decision making, in opposite to decentralized decision making. So next is reactive management, the style of reactive, this kind of organizations. So the place reactive is they have the the changes is considered dynamic and turbulence, but their adaptation is low. So they have low adaptations, but they have high competitive, hard changes in the environment. So how they're going to adapt? So in order to adapt to this, they only react. So reactive come from the word reacting to a stimulus. So they only react after the condition of the environment change. So they're not prepared for the change. They only do changes after the environment change. So the hyperturbulent, they characterized by hyperturbulence environments and low adaptations. So they're not really prepared. So they only react after the condition change. So that means they use the short-term crisis type of adaptation. So they just everything the environment change, then they do something after something change. So they're waiting until the serious problem emerge, so which no longer can be ignored, and then they take drastic corrective measures. So how do you think this style of organization is going to survive? So they could survive, but they need to do lots of changes, maybe more drastic, and maybe more kind of major changes, because they wait the last minute until everything cannot be overcome, and then they change. So usually this kind of reactive management, how they react to change, normally they replace the key people, the one that contributing to the organizations. They also have hasty reorganization of the strategy, of the structure, and so forth, and they also drastic cutting the personnel and product lines. So this is how they react to change, how they want to survive in the environment that's characterized by hyper turbulence kind of changes. Because of their low adaptation, this is what they need to do. They need to take drastic major corrective measure to overcome the problem because of their low adaptation to change. Next is the organizations that use renewing transformations management, especially in the hyper turbulence environments where changes are fierce, rapid, and also when they also highly adapt to the environments. So this kind of organization is the most desirable adaptations or adaptive style. So they respond to the change. They prepare to before the change happens. So they proactively take advantage of the new opportunity and innovation. So when we talk about proactive, that's is mean before something happened, they already they already take the initiative. They already take control of themselves, of the organizations. So they deal with the future condition before they occur, before these changes occur. They fit with the renewal orientations. They become champion of innovations. So they are faster at developing new ideas. They are more responsive to the competitive changes. So they set the thermostat quite at the sensitive degree of change. So these kind of organizations, they not only prepare, they take initiative before the change occur in the organization. So this is the most desirable adaptive style of change. So they are also participative. That means they prepare the employees. They get the employees committed and involved in the process of change. They also utilize the renewing managerial style. So this is very relevant to the today organizations, where today organization, they need to develop this kind of orientations in order to maintain a competitive advantage, even to survive. So this is the desirable. This is the one that is needed in any organizations in order to survive, especially in order to maintain their competitive advantage. Okay, system approach. Certain organizations, especially most organizations, they break their company, departments or operations into key processes in order to make sure that each of the departments, each of the operation work effectively. They break into key processes. So that's mean they make their organization become more horizontal. So horizontal mean in the same line. That's mean they focus on in making sure every single operations actually work effectively. So it's been managing across rather than up and down. So this is the opposite of taller organization. Taller organization, normally the top managers give a directions what to do and so forth. And then normally the lower level employees will abide by what are ever given the instructions or the command by the top management. But horizontal cooperation, they managing across. It's like they work as a team. So, managing across instead of from top to bottom or from bottom to top. So they work as a team, as a family. So that's managing across. So they create teams from different departments to run them, to run each of the organization of each of the departments or operation in the organization. So manager can no longer function within the traditional organizational chart. So if you refer to the organization's chart, I give you an example how the organization chart look like. So this is the organization chart. Normally there will be a leader, or there will be a manager, and there will be few employees. So that's the traditional organization chart. This will explain that the leader will have more power to instruct or to order the employees. So this is the traditional way of organization of management. Nowadays, they are moving towards a flatter style of organizations. So they are more encouraging teams or work groups in the organization. So they are no longer traditional organizational charts. That means there will be someone as a leader, someone as an employees or subordinates to just receive orders from the tops. So everyone work as a team. So integrate their department with the goal and strategy, and they work on this. So flatter organizations, that means they reduce the operating cost by moving towards horizontal style of organizations. So the organizations could reduce operating costs and remove the layers in the management that are not needed. So they flatten their organizations. So flatten mean they widen the span of control. Span of control mean employees are responsible to the managers. So each of the employees responsible to the managers. So managers have authority on their employees. So normally in the taller organization, they have more managers for employees. But for the wider span of control, there will be less managers for employees. So this is how the tall organization look like. There will be more managers for the same numbers of employees. So if the organization flatter their structure. That means there will be less manager. Employees remain the same, but there will be a lesser number of managers. So they will become flatter. They cut unnecessary, layers. So this will increase the effectiveness, reduce the cost. So so many organizations are moving toward flatter organizations to become more cost effective, to become more efficient. Okay, for greater efficiency and productivity, many organizations become, flatter their organizations. They focusing more on total quality management, or we call it TQM, re-engineering, process redesign, and so forth. So they come up with all this term, but it's actually, men's flatter style of organization, because they cut all this, so they become more they work as a team. So it's become flatter in the organization. So no style of bureaucracy. There are still some bureaucracy, but not as strict as before. So organization as system, and this is already common. Organization is not one entity, but as a system, because it consists of interrelated parts, designed with a purpose, with a goal. They have to deal with a change, not only as a unit, but also as an interrelationship between the units, between the department, and so forth. So organization as an open system. So the basic things to understand first, in the organization, when they want to produce something, they use these inputs, outputs. These are how the technology works also. So inputs need to be transferred into output through some processes. So input are the resources or the raw material, and output is the finished products or the goods. So they change the input into outputs. Output is the product or services. So this is quite common. Many people use technology, use all sort of things to change, to transform input into output. So in the organization, here, organization as an open system. So the resources the resource input, as you can see in the organization, can be in terms of information, facilities, material, money, people, technology. So they change into outputs, such as the services provided by the employees, the money that the investments, the shareholder puts, change, being transferred, processes, become goods or become products. So that these are the system, the open system that being used in the organizations, in the business, in the firm, and in order to produce something. So this is common. So I do not need to explain each of these in detail. So in continual interaction with the environments, so because of organization as an open system, they have to interact with the external environment. They receive the feedback. For example, if they produce products or services, they need to receive feedback from the environments regarding their products. So receive feedbacks. They need, because of their organization as an open system, they interact with the environment, with the external environment. So they receive feedbacks. So organization can adjust itself to the change to what's needed in the environments, for example, from the customer, from the public, and so forth. So they achieve a steady state of dynamic equilibrium. That means because they adapt to the change, so they achieve this kind of dynamic equilibrium in order to survive in the environment. Closed system, the opposite of open system is closed system. Closed system is a self-contained and isolated from the environment. So for closed system, the organization just do not really affected by the not really affected. They are not really interact with the external. They just self-contained. They just do not really they operate in the closed, isolated from others environment, external environment. So in the strictest sense, closed system only exists in the theory. How do you want to survive if you are not interact with your customer or your main contributor? that's help you to survive. So in the real world, the closed system is not really exist. So all systems need to interact with the external environments, with the outside of the organization. So the technical system organization is also called socio-technical system, because it consists of coordinated human and technical activities in the organization. So in the organization involving humans and technical activities in order to produce product or services, all involve technical activities and also human activities. So not considered as an isolated elements, but actually is a reacting to the influence of the system element outside or inside. So they consist of goals and values coming from the employees, coming from the managers, technical subsystems, structural, psychosocial system, managerial subsystems. So all these are interacting in the organizations or outside in the organization. So the recent development regarding the application of socio-technical system is related to high performance system. So in HR, we call it high performance work system, but in general in this textbook, it's referring to high performance system. So all these high performance system occurred by design, not by chance. That means in order to produce the high performance either work system or system, it's normally through design. It's been designed, it's been planned. It's not just by chance. By chance, this organization could become a high performance system organization. It's actually by design, by plan. Someone has come up with the strategies, come up with a design, come up with a system, with something in order to make sure that it's actually this organization could achieve its performance standards. So all organizations are perfectly designed to get the results. So the key variable consists of this business situation, strategy, and so forth. So this is the elements that we're going to discuss later, but it's not related much to the OD. So contingency approach. So in order to adapt with the situations, in order to adapt with the environments, with the changing environment and so forth, there will be no best approach. So normally people use contingency approach. Contingency mean you use it whenever it is needed. If this thing happen, then you need to use this contingency approach. So consider organization and environment. So they consider both. In order to come up with the approach, they consider both organization and environments. So combination of contingency. For example, it is stable environments. So if this happen, so they need to use what kind of adaptations. So can specify general approach to change that more effective than others. That means maybe it's not really a perfect approach if something happened. So according to this textbook, organization can use contingency approach to identify what actually needed. So if this thing happened, then they need to use this kind of approach. So that's how they manage change in direction. So future shocks and change. So future shock is normally referring to when something happens, like changes happen in the short period of time. So in too short period of time, and if change happen, the organizations will experience future shocks because of inability to adapt to the accelerating change. So management reaction to change may be strange because they are not prepared. So this creating a danger of future shocks. For example, according to textbook, the shift in the U.S. from when U.S. shift from industrial-based economy to a technological-based economy, this actually creates a state of turbulent change, not only for the organization but also to the employees, because they are not prepared. So when the change happens in the short period of time, we call it future shocks. So it's too much, the organization or the employees cannot cope with that. So because of that, managers must be adaptable, must be flexible, so that they could easily adapt to change if change happens, whether it is in the short period of time or in the highly turbulent environments. So organization transformation. So there are two terms I'm going to introduce today. It's not two terms, it's just one term, because OD you already know last week. Organizational transformations, how OT different from OD. So these two approach actually important. Both are major ways of managing change, but they are different. OT and OD are different, but they are important uh, in order to know how to manage change. Be explained by OT and OD. So OT change organization. So when we talk about organizational transformation, that means it's a changes regarding the form, the shape of, or the appearance of the organization. So this is the regarding the shape, the appearance, not like organization development. So OT is a revolution. So revolution is actually referring to sudden dramatic or complete change. So the revolutions, OT is a revolution. So the organization need to change its form, its shape, all the suddens in response to change. To transform the frameworks of the organization, normally because it is dramatic, it is unplanned. So unplanned normally in response to pressure. So change in this kind of OT because of the in order to survive. So it's kind of dramatic change. So it's unplanned change. So normally unplanned change will have a bad consequence. We have negative consequence on the organizations. So change for OT, change occurs in the short time frames. That means in the short period of time. Immediately to deal with the survival because of the crisis, because of the change. They have to change their organization, their form, their appearance, and so forth. So that's the difference between OT and OD. So OD is like an evolution. OD because there is a planned change. So it's a slow or gradual change. So OD consists of 5 stages. Organization need to aware about the issues, and then they enter into practitioner client relationship, and they do the diagnosis of the problems, gather the data. So that's a gradual process of OD. So that's why it says evolution, because evolution is a gradual slow changes, pace of change. So planned change happen on the large scales, large scale organization wide, a longer time periods than OT, because they plan the change. They also plan, so they take a process and also analyze the problems. So it's prepare the organization for the change and gradual implementation. So employees are not shocked by the change. So interact with the external environment to survive. So that's mean they do the market survey, they interact, they adjust to the environments, they in order to know what's the environment's condition and so forth. So they modify the organization and the total or major parts of in the organization that needs changes. So OD is more of the planned change. OT is unplanned change. It's happen also dramatic, normally in response to the change. And OD is more gradual, is more planned change, happen at the larger, time frames, and also interacts with the external environments and so forth. So what's OD focus on? So like I mentioned in the first week, the aim of OD is to improve organizational effectiveness. So this organizational effectiveness involve individual effectiveness first, team effectiveness, and indirectly organizational effectiveness. So it involves 3 layers of effectiveness. So organization effectiveness can be increased by creating a culture that want to achieve organizational goals. So employees effectiveness or individual effectiveness also aim to achieve organizational goal. So at the same time also, for the organization, in order to consider as effective, they also need to satisfy employees' needs. That means not just focusing on organizational performance as one entity, but also employees. So effectiveness as a whole. So how to improve individual effectiveness? Normally, organization use empowerment. There are lots of strategy, lots of method how they want to increase employees' effectiveness, but it's mentioned in the textbook. Just through empowerment. So empowerment mean give the employees the decision making, the power to make a decision, the power to do their own way of performing their work, as long as they could improve their productivity, their quality, their commitment. So given empowerment, given freedoms for employees to decide on how to make their work more effective. So change effort, focusing on individual effectiveness. Normally, in order to improve effectiveness, organizations conduct several activities such as giving empowerment trainings program, or even they give high power executive development programs. Normally, executive development program is for executive or employees level of executive, but for normal employees they give, or employees in general, they give empowerment trainings, but the higher level we call it development programs. That means prepare employees for the future career, for their own good in terms of career development and so forth. So empowerment activities are normally designed to improve the skill, abilities, and motivational levels. So these skill, abilities, and motivation actually could increase the effectiveness of the employees, because if they have skill, they have more competence in doing their jobs. If they have more motivation, they could sustain if they feel burnt out, or if they feel they cannot survive. If they feel that they are in the midst of breakdown, but because of the motivation, it's actually could make employees become more effective. Motivation is very important because as a human, employees also sometimes there will be ups and downs. But those who are motivated, they consider ups and downs is something common, something natural, so that they is not be affected by the negative activities or negative thing happens to them. So the goal of these activities is to improve managerial skill, their technical skill, and also their competence. So this actually, in consequence, could improve, could enhance their effectiveness. Team effectiveness normally focusing on improving problem solving, because in the organization sometimes, especially for the organization who are focusing more on teamwork, there are some groups known as self-managed team, where the organization are put in the teams where they decide how to perform the job, and they work in the team. There's no supervisor to supervise them. They individually responsible for their performance. So that's involve problem solving, working through conflicts, and so forth. So they could work in the team, and they no longer need a supervisor, and it's actually good in improving the effectiveness of the employees, individual, and also as a team. So team activities, when focusing on team effectiveness, include activities, what the teams are actually doing, team process, how the team work and their relationship among the members, and the technique to examine the groups. So normally the organization use process observations, where they examine the way the group functions. For example, in terms of leadership, decision making, communication between the members and so forth. So normally effective team will show an increment in the work motivations, improve their performance, and then the absenteeism also decrease and turnover also decrease. That's how organizations look whether the teams actually become more effective or not through their whether they have high absenteeism or not. The more absenteeism, that's mean the more ineffective. So the less mean the more effective the organization, the teams. So focus on organizational effectiveness. So in total, organizations use OD because they want to improve their organization effectiveness. Of course, they will need to improve individual effectiveness, team effectiveness, and as a whole organizational effectiveness. So they focus on total attainment of the organizational system. That means individual, teams, and so forth. So each has a specific target to focus on. So for the organizations, OD normally occur when the change effort is focused on the total system. Sometimes the organization require OD because they want to focus on changing, making a change to the total system. That means improve effectiveness by changes in the structure of the organization. For example, the taller organization, they want to become flatter organization so that they could cut the cost, they could improve the effectiveness, efficiency, and so forth. And technology also, of course, they have to follow the trends, what the technology, they need to be ahead of the trends so that they could be the leader introducing something. So they also need to adapt with the changes in the environments and also their management. They also need to improve their management because the operations of the organization is actually done by the management. So they need to, if they want to to improve the effectiveness, especially in terms of management, of course sometimes they require OD to come in to help them with that. Okay, that's it everyone. Thank you for your attention.